Lesson two, the one where we call out fear. So, by doing things like a wheel of life assessment and exploring contrast versus clarity, or just by taking a few minutes in meditation to imagine what your ideal life truly feels like, you're beginning this journey of gaining clarity on what you really want. Through self reflection, you're going to capture words and phrases that align with how you'd like to feel, how you'd like to look, and what you'd really like to do, be, or have. In this most fulfilling version of your life, this clarity is going to be such a powerful foundation. And next, we're going to start exploring what might be holding us back from either getting to work to make that life possible or get out of the way so that we can allow the universe to start stepping in and bring us more of all of these things that we say we want. So, in this lesson, we're going to talk about fear. So, unbeknownst to many of us, fear really often hides in the shadows of our biggest dreams. And it's constantly whispering these reasons for us to stay in our comfort zone, even if that means settling for less than what we truly want. So, this quiet voice of fear may convince us to hold back, to play small, to stay safe. But in reality, it's only keeping us from living the feel good life that we just finished saying that we wanted. So, by starting to identify and understand some of our most impeding fears, we can start to see them for what they are, these imaginary barriers that are rooted in most often these old beliefs or these past experiences that are just not serving us or the future us that we want to create. So, in this lesson, we're going to be diving into some of the specific fears that could be holding us back from feeling free and fulfilled and peaceful and calm. Together, we're going to shine a light on what might be keeping us stuck, and we're going to discuss some strategies to help us recognize the fears and embrace the courage to confront them so that we can start to open ourselves up to the new possibilities that and give ourselves permission to step into this new vision for the life we want to create. So, this lesson isn't just about overcoming fear, it's about transforming it and using it as a stepping stone toward the life that we're ready to create. So, we're going to turn this fear into fuel for our journey. So, let's talk about fear. So, fear is this primal emotion and it's rooted in survival instincts. As humans, fear is what kicks in when we sense a threat. It's how our brain ensures our safety and our survival. And our brains have done this since the beginning of time. So, there are four main responses to fear. These are the strategies that animals, including humans, have evolved to help us cope with and survive all kinds of threats. So, you've probably heard of them. The four responses are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Some people have never heard of fawn and just fight, flight, or freeze. But we're going to talk about all four. So, the fight response is about facing the threat head on. So, animals in this case would get aggressive to protect themselves or their territory or their babies. In us humans, it might look more like standing up to a challenge or defending ourselves when we feel threatened. With the fight response, we feel things like anger or frustration, or maybe we're even feeling disrespect and we're fighting because of that. The next response is the flight response, and that one's about getting away from the threat. Animals will run away or fly away to avoid this danger. And as humans, we do the same thing by escaping or avoiding the situations that might feel overwhelming to us or just unsafe. So, this can bring up emotions like panic or anxiety or that overwhelming feeling that we have to just get out, to just flee. When we freeze, we stay silent and we stay still, and we just hope that the threat will kind of pass by unnoticed. So animals will use this as a passive defense, and humans do too. Usually for us, though, freeze is when we feel stuck. We're frozen, we're unable to make a move because we're consciously or unconsciously nervous or insecure or just plain paralyzed in the face of fear. The freeze response in humans physically would have been maybe encountering a bear and playing dead, right? The fawn response is all about appeasing or pleasing the threat to avoid harm. So you're going to see this in animals through submissive gestures, like maybe a submissive dog rolling over immediately when it sees another dog that intimidates it. Or for us humans, it shows up as people pleasing or going along with what other people do or say. And we just don't want conflict. We don't want to speak our mind because we're afraid of the conflict. This is all of us that don't like conflict, right? We'll get more into conflict and all of that later, but often this fawn response and avoiding conflict is connected to feelings of shame or inadequacy. Okay, so recognizing these responses can help us see how our instincts are just like the instincts of the animals. But instead of real physical threats, we're reacting this way in response to emotional threats sometimes. And this is what might be holding us back in a lot of ways from creating the life we want. So, understanding these four fear responses, or the four F's, as I like to call them, and beginning to look for them in ourselves is going to help us to reshape them into something that serves us in a healthier, happier, and more productive way. So while fear in general is a good thing, it does serve to protect us, all animals, including humans. And these four responses have helped humans stay alive and safe from physical threats for ever. Reacting in these ways to emotional threats can actually hinder our growth and our resilience and our well being, especially when our brain misinterprets these false threats. So, you know the saying, right? Fear is false evidence appearing real. Well, when our mind mistakes a non threatening situation for a real danger, and when we automatically react to that danger without a chance to choose what response we want, because it's habitual, we can end up feeling stuck or even regretful once we have time to calm ourselves down, calm the fear down, and get a clearer perspective on what was actually happening. So, in the 20th and 21st centuries, of course, we've made incredible advancements in our safety and our healthcare and our technology, so much so that most of our primal physical threats are gone. So, we're not about to be chased into a cave by a saber-toothed tiger anytime soon. And we're not um, fearing things that are physically in our faces all the time now, that we have to physically fear that we're going to die. But now we face this whole new set of fears, and they're psychological fears. So, psychological fears are things like our mental health struggles, our social dynamics. We have these psychological fears that revolve around technology and social media. And these were just not prominent in societies before ours today. So we are constantly in these four F states without realizing it. These types of fears, they don't impact our physical safety, but our bodies actually don't know the difference, because they're challenging our sense of identity and purpose and success, and they're adding these pressures in our relationships, and they're leaving us to have these constant worries about all of these uncertainties almost daily, and our body is perceiving it as real threats. So today, as a society, we're drowning in things like anxiety and self-doubt and emotional distress, and these are huge fears that most of us don't even realize are impacting our lives as significantly as they are. And that's one of the reasons why I do this work, for the purposes of understanding these fears and these anxieties and this self-doubt and this emotional distress. I want women to understand that if you are feeling stuck or bored or annoyed or just complacent, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're not lazy or a failure for not reaching your goals or feeling lost about who you want to be or what you want to do. Chances are you're just unknowingly engaging in these thoughts and these beliefs and these relationships or behaviors that might be causing you fear. And that is what's holding you back, because your soul feels the disconnection. Your soul knows what it wants, and this fear is holding you back from getting it. So, today, in all of the world, the top three fears are these three: the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, and the fear of uncertainty. There's a fourth fear there. We're going to visit that in a sec. But for these three, I want you to notice how none of these is about physical safety. So today, we're emotionally battling these threats all day long. We're grappling with these feelings of inadequacy, the self doubt, the pressure to meet everybody else's expectations of us. And this is why so many of us are disconnected from the authentic version of ourselves. And we're living instead this life of a person that others expect us to be, not the person we're meant to be, not the person our soul longs for us to be. So, we're going to dive into how the psychological fears can activate those four F's: the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, even when there's no physical danger present. And when these responses take over, they can be the very things that are keeping us from creating a life we love. We're going to put this all into perspective with some real life examples that you can relate to so that you can kind of understand this better. Okay, so let's put this into perspective and take a look at the 4Fs in action with some real life examples. So in fight, imagine you're in a meeting at work and someone challenges your idea. It's not a big deal, but your brain immediately sees this as a threat, not physical, but a threat to your value, to your identity, to your ego. So, like a skunk spraying an innocent bystander because it's afraid, without even realizing it, you're reacting defensively to your coworker because deep down, this challenge has triggered a fear of rejection. You're afraid. Suddenly, you're defending your position with a loud voice. You're annoyed. Maybe you're presenting facts without empathy or curiosity to your coworker. Maybe you're rationalizing your ideas to your boss to prove yourself right. But when I say all of that, does any of that feel good? Does it make you feel any more heard or valued if you act that way? More often than not, it doesn't. Instead, that fight response can actually rob us of growth. If we're defending our ego, we might be missing the chance to collaborate, to gain new perspectives, to even strengthen relationships with people at work that might have additional value to offer us. Think about how many times you've overreacted. And in hindsight, you realized maybe you missed an opportunity to connect with someone or to build trust or even to learn something new. This is how the fight response in unregulated fear can hold us back. The next one I want to look at is flight. So the flight response, let's say you're at a social gathering where you feel out of place. Maybe you feel underdressed or that everybody has nicer clothes than you. Maybe you feel that everyone else fits in with this group of intellectuals more than you do. These feelings of self-doubt and that fearing of rejection can creep in. And before you know it, you're looking for any excuse in the book to leave the party early and maybe grab an Uber home. You may be even ditching your friends if you went with them because you're in your head and you just want to get out of there because of the fear. So, just like a dog that would be taking off when someone's trying to save it, your fear isn't there to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. In this case, it's trying to protect you from your emotional well being. It's trying to protect your ego because it feels like your ego is in danger of you not feeling good enough. But here's the problem. If you leave, you're missing out on all of these opportunities to connect, to network, to learn, to grow. What if on your feel good life, in your imagination, in your vision, you have this longing for an amazing new romantic relationship and that person was at the party, but you left early? Who knows what amazing connections or moments like that you might be passing up? What if someone there could have connected you to your dream job and that's in your vision? A new friendship might be in your vision, or even a chance to learn something new. By choosing flight, you might be avoiding discomfort in the moment, but we're limiting our potential for so many meaningful moments that we could enjoy and connect and grow, or even be the answers to the dreams that we've been looking for in our lives. Let's go to freeze. So when we think about freeze, we can think about that possum lying still on the ground, pretending to be dead, or humans, if a bear is attacking us, pretending to be dead. This response is usually tied to a fear of uncertainty. So imagine being at a family gathering and your brother or sister makes a passive aggressive comment about your relationship with your parents, or you're using them for money, or something that caught you and hurt you or caught you off guard. And you don't know how to respond to it because it's just not true. But you don't want to escalate any tension or cause a scene. So you freeze. And while staying silent might seem like the safe choice right then, it actually could leave unresolved feelings of hurt or resentment. You could play this over and over in your brain for days or weeks or months until it finally comes to a head. But over time, those suppressed emotions, they build up and they strain relationships. If having strong family connections is something you value, then that freeze response to that action can actually prevent you from addressing misunderstandings head on and creating the closest you want. Awareness of this response can help you recognize how fear may be blocking you from meaningful relationships, but it could be blocking you from other things too if you're using the freeze response. And then there's the fawn response. So this is about appeasing or pleasing to minimize harm. For many of us, this is the people pleasing behavior that we learned so early on in childhood. So suppose you're interacting with someone who's very assertive or confident, and without realizing it, you find yourself just agreeing with them, avoiding having a contrary opinion, even though you really do have one, or even maybe over complimenting them, or chiming in with them to gain approval. Why? Why do we do that? Because our mind is subconsciously trying to protect our self esteem or our social standing. But when we always agree, or we always placate, or we always people please, we're missing out on these chances to be our true selves. And we have these feelings of longing that we want something more or deeper or connection. We need to be able to let people know who we really are, to practice assertiveness, not aggressiveness, assertiveness, and to strengthen connections in a way that feels real and mutual for us. Have you ever felt intimidated by someone only to find out that they were intimidated by you too? It's incredibly empowering when it happens, and it happens to me a lot. I walk into a room and I feel intimidated. And by the end of the conversation, now, instead of fawning like I used to, I get curious and I ask a lot of questions. And by the end of the conversation, I realize that there are things about this person that I admire, and that we can collaborate and we can connect and we can learn from each other. And by asking them questions about themselves and getting to know them better, they can get to know me better. So by choosing this kind of curiosity over fear, and actually participating instead of fawning, I grow into who I truly want to be rather than sinking into people pleasing and missing out on these true connections. All right. So now you have an idea, of how these types of fears might be at work in your lives. There's so many other examples, but I just wanted to give you a few. The fear of rejection keeps you from living your authentic self. The fear of failure stops you from trying things outside of your comfort zone. The fear of uncertainty holds you back from both of those things because you just can't control the outcome, right? And you can begin to understand how these fears are quietly causing you to miss out on creating this life that you've envisioned for yourself, the life you know you would love. But those three fears aren't the only ones. So I told you before that there was a fourth one. So this fourth one, for me, is like a D, all of the above, right? So the fear of success. Hold on, I'm just trying to find my notes here. I lost my page. The fear of success is just as impactful in the lives of the women I work with as any of these other fears. And I dare say it might be most impactful out of all of them. And it's hard for people to swallow or even believe because it kind of goes against everything we think in our heads. Um, who would be afraid of success? Why would I be afraid of success? Did you ever really think about it? You might have heard me say, studies show over and over and over again that people will always do more to avoid pain than to seek pleasure, right? And this is where that kind of thing comes into play. If success sounds pleasurable, even if it's the most pleasurable thing we think we could want, the fear, these hidden fears about what success could change in our lives could actually be more painful than the pleasure of success. So, for instance, you might worry that achieving your goals will bring consequences that you aren't ready for, like fear of judgment from other people, especially the people we care about, or rejection from our friends or family or community or coworkers, or even failure in not achieving success, but in managing the changes that success might bring. So let's say you start making a lot of money, which is one of your financial goals. You might worry that you no longer fit in with your current friends or family, or wonder even if you still would want the same friends or family. Or maybe you're worried if you make a lot of money that you're going to want to do things that those friends can't afford. We like our friends. So, what happens if we don't like them anymore once we get this new job and make more money and have new friends? So success could also impact relationships. Will I need my partner less if I grow in my spirituality or my social life? Will my ambition in my career create distance between me and my partner? Think about how many Hollywood marriages fail because one partner gets more roles than the other one or gets more famous than the other one. It's the same as us as with celebrities, right? They're just like us. We might fear that this added responsibility that comes with success keeps us from the very things that we love most now. Maybe we don't know how to manage money if we make more money. Maybe we'd have to hire help if we worked more hours. Maybe stepping into a leadership role pushes us so far out of our comfort zone that we're going to do so much to avoid that feeling that we won't even go for the job. Or if we have so much success and we're moms, what if that success is something we really wanted in our career or maybe even in our health, but that's going to require more of our time and energy. And we already feel like we're not good enough mothers because of the limited time and energy we currently have with our kids. So it's these kinds of subconscious what if thoughts that can cause us all the fears. And if and when these fears become bigger than the desires, we're going to do more to avoid the pain than we will to seek the pleasure. And it will block us from reaching our goals. It's a complete and utter conflict. This is the conflict that's keeping us from doing all the things we say we want to do. Many of you want to know why you self sabotage. This is the main reason. This is the main reason we self sabotage. Consider the fear of success if you haven't considered it before. No matter how wonderful this dream life might look like for you, no matter what picture you painted for yourself of what this feel good life is going to look like in your wheel of life wedges, that fear of what could come after that can feel even stronger. And we don't even know it's there. So all of these fears are why people stay unhappy. They stay in unhealthy relationships. They never lose the weight or keep it off. They stick with miserable jobs. They avoid budgeting and financial changes that they know they need to make because the fears lurking on the other side of our brains can bring us so much pain that it seems more powerful than the potential joy of anything that we think we want. So now we're going to apply this to your life. So this lesson's exercise is all about uncovering your not so visible fears that could be sabotaging you, the ones that might be quietly working to protect you without you even knowing it and without your permission. This exercise is designed to help you identify your fears and your go-to responses, those 4 F's that you turn to most often as a form of self-defense. The recognition of your fear responses, the 4 F's, might be enough to help you catch the fears when they're happening. And that's the goal, catching it. So it's not subconscious anymore. We want to bring all of this out to the forefront so that once it's there, we can get to the root of it and work out the truth about what's really happening. And the truth part's going to come later. But for today, I've created a worksheet for you to dig into your personal fears and start identifying the ones that may be holding you back. Remember, we call these the wedges of the wheel, and these are the areas that we're going to focus on. So in the first column, you're going to see a list of the wedges, the health, relationship, career, finances. And if you don't have the worksheet, you're just going to make a column and you're going to list out the wedges of the wheel. In the second column, your job is going to be to start identifying the dominant fears that you might have in that wedge of your wheel. So you might not have fears in all of these wedges, but if you're struggling to achieve something in one of those wedges, or you have a super low score in one of those areas, despite your deepest desires to have a different outcome than what you currently have, those are the ones you want to start at. So for example, if you're working on your health wedge and you just can't seem to get to your goal weight, and I keep going there because we're women and it keeps coming up for a lot of us, or we can't stay at our goal weight, you've been trying for years, you might have to start thinking about why. Is there a fear here that you can't see? So how do we find the fears? Well, I've included a list of questions that you can ask yourself to begin to uncover your fears. It's a document called Find Your Fears. It's in your email. It could also be in the post if you're watching this in a group. Or it might be in your workbooks. But these questions are going to encourage you to dig deeper and reflect on any subconscious fears that might be holding you back. I won't read them all, but just to give you an idea of how they're going to make you think, one of them is, what am I afraid might change in my life if I reach this goal? What am I afraid might change in my life if I make this change? Is there a part of me that feels safer not achieving this goal? Do I worry about how others are going to see me if I succeed in this area? Am I holding back because I fear that I might fail or I might not live up to any new expectations? That was a big one for me. Is there a fear of rejection if I fully express myself? If do I worry that pursuing what I want might distance me from certain people? What beliefs do I hold about my worthiness? Do any fears come up around not being good enough or worthy enough for this goal? Am I afraid of losing part of myself if I move forward in this area? Am I worried about losing control if I move forward in this area? Do I fear that success might bring negative attention? Am I worried that making this change will bring up unknown challenges? There are a ton of questions. You have 2 full pages of questions. Some of them are broad and general, and some of them you can use to narrow down into specific wedges of the wheel. But using these questions is going to help you reflect on and identify the fears that you might have about achieving the life that you think you want. And it's eventually going to make it easier for us to notice these recurring patterns or beliefs that might be holding you back. So when you start asking yourself these questions, you might realize you have a fear that you didn't know about. The last 10 pounds you're always trying to lose, maybe you realize when you ask these questions that when you become thinner, you attract unwanted attention or advances, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. I never knew that before. Or maybe you worry that when you're the thinnest in your family or your friend group, that they're going to think that you think that you're better than them. This could be fear of uncertainty, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, and fear of success. You see it? So, not only in the second column are you going to write down the fears, but you're going to write down what that fear, which one of the top 4 fears, it boils down to. So, let's say you're afraid to lose the weight because you don't want to be the thinnest in your family because it makes other people feel bad. That's fear of rejection, right? So in the second column of your chart, you're going to identify the fears and you're going to categorize it. And then in the third column, you're going to identify what you think your dominant 4F response has been to that fear. Historically, you're just going to think to all the times that this fear kind of reared its head and how you reacted. Maybe in this example, you're going to realize that you tend to freeze when you think about losing weight. Maybe you feel stuck or unsure about where to begin or committing to a program to start or to continue or to maintain. Or maybe you notice a fawn response where you tell yourself, I only gained back 5 pounds and it's not a big deal, right? But you're using avoidance because it feels safer than actually paying attention to the fear. Another example, if you look at the career wedge, you might start asking yourself questions like, do I worry about being judged differently by my colleagues or my friends if I take this promotion? Maybe you've commiserated with your colleagues about the man you're about to go work for or woman you're about to go work for. And now what are they going to think of me if I take this role? And then maybe your dominant response is that you flight and you leave the job before they can even recognize you or ask you to take the promotion, or you fawn by avoiding applying for the job, or taking on any new challenges. So this exercise is really about building awareness of all of our hidden fears and understanding how they show up in our lives and recognizing our instinctual responses that we're using to keep ourselves safe. So by identifying these fears and our response patterns, we're going to begin to see how they could be shaping our choices and ultimately our life and our life goals. When we really can begin to notice these fears, identify them, and name them, then we can start to rationalize whether they're based on the truth or if they really are just false evidence appearing real. So, like I said earlier, our lessons coming forward on limiting beliefs and the emotional ladder, they're going to help us dive deeper into the thoughts and beliefs and the habits that might be contributing to these fears. And they're going to help us learn how to change them. But for now, this exercise and this lesson is about just noticing and understanding that these fears exist. And the types of fears that we have and where they originate from is a huge step in the right direction for us. Awareness is the foundation of change. And uncovering some of these deepest fears is going to give us so much awareness. And we're going to get a clearer view of where you are today and help you map out where you want to go. I promise you that the insights you gain from this exercise are going to help you feel empowered to approach the changes that we're about to make in your life with greater confidence and clarity and control. And I'm super excited to hear what you learned from this lesson and this exercise.